If you're Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, you may have thought that this literally could have been the icing on the cake, the final sort of thing where you could have pieced it all back together, and this would have been seen as very much a public apology on your side. You know, the one that allegedly you wanted originally, but now you're offering to the Prince of Wales, His Royal Highness Prince William. But behind the scenes, things aren't exactly going to plan. As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, lovely to see you. Thank you so much as ever for taking the time out to join me today on a rather beautiful but yet humid day here in the United Kingdom. You all right? You keep it all right? Thank you, by the way, for your lovely comments regarding my recent video about the National Trust and their scones. That got us talking, didn't it? I think many of you, and I agree with you on this, by the way, I think if you're going to pay that level of money, you know, it's nice to have the homemade element of what those wonderful ladies and men have been making for years at those particular cafes. To just disregard it and say, well, here's some from a shop. Why would you pay all of that? You might as well take your own. And I tell you what, I bet we'll start banning those next. Do you know what I mean? Oh yes, I've got a trusty flask wherever I'm going. You know what? Everybody knows that, right? You have to. Let's of course get back to your royal story of the day. Now, where I find this particular interesting is the desperation that both Meghan and Harry are now literally seeping through on a daily basis. This is really down to the fact that their big plans, their big ideas simply didn't work out. And as I've said to you before, I don't relish that on anybody. People are allowed dreams, people are allowed to have a go. But when you fall from such a spectacular height and given the platform that you'd already had, it's ridiculous to think that you couldn't make it work. But as I said to you many times before, I blame Prince Harry in many respects because from the off, he basically stated, didn't he, if you remember, that he didn't really want to sign the Netflix deal. So consequently, you know, he kind of put the death knell in that long before the disastrous programs. But what's interesting now is that they both realise, including the former cable TV actress Meghan Markle, that without the British monarchy, very, very few people are interested. One of the problems that Harry recently encountered was the lackluster, interest in his Angola landmines walk. He couldn't believe that it didn't do that well, even pitching that on the day of the woman he called dangerous. That's right, Camilla, our Queen Camilla. Rather cruel and rather disingenuous and not at all overlooked by His Majesty the King and indeed the Prince of Wales. But recently we were told by a now favoured tabloid reporter over at a tabloid newspaper here this Sunday that apparently Prince Harry alongside Meghan Markle have offered to share their diary, right? Now, as I said to you before, what would be in that diary? Harry goes for a bike ride at 10:10, 20 past back home, staring at chickens. I mean, truly, these people have nothing to do all day. This is the problem, right? You know, they may have a lot of staff, but there's nothing occupying their minds. Now, basically, the idea is that they don't clash on big events so that people can pick and make sure that they're not cross-wiring, for instance, a charitable endeavour by His Majesty the King or indeed Catherine the Princess of Wales. Here's the deal. Prince William, I can tell you, 100% totally ignored, not interested, zip it, move on, not bothered. Now, you can only do that if you're in a position of power. And as we always knew, William and Catherine, alongside the King and the Queen, will always have the higher ground in the position of power. It's the way it goes. But you see, for Harry, this was a sort of way back of saying, look, I'm trying to be contrite, I'm trying to be nice and show you that I can be good, and here we are, and we can all work together on this thing that we're doing ourselves. But consequently, it doesn't work like that. And as they've seen time and time again, whatever William and Catherine do far outstrips them in magazine sales and digital platforms. Harry and Meghan are struggling and finding it very, very hard to come to terms with their fall from grace. Now, these things can be turned around, and the idea of this was that this would be the way how Harry would turn it around, particularly from his new team, headed up by Meredith Maines. These are her ideas, as ever, I have to say, allegedly. But what's fascinating about this is they're spectacularly backfiring simply because, as many people know, the man truly now in charge is none other than the Prince of Wales, Prince William. And rightly so, because this eventually will become his kingdom. Harry, very slowly, has woken up to that, alongside Meghan Markle, when she's got away from Instagram and stopped stirring pots of jams. You see how this is developing. Neil Sean in the very heart of the United Kingdom.